Hey everyone, Clueless Dad here. I have another stroller video, but this is not a review, this is an anti-review. I'm not going to tell you why you should buy the stroller in this video. I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't buy the stroller in this video. So the purpose of this video is actually to give you some tips on what to look for in a good stroller and what to avoid in a bad stroller. Especially if you have the opportunity to get a stroller secondhand from a friend or a relative. But even if you're looking for a new stroller, I think these tips are really important to look for. So the footage you see in this video is actually from a Melody Moon stroller that we got from a relative when we were visiting in Japan. It's about 10 years old, long discontinued. You can actually still find them on sale secondhand for like $20 to $50. But again, the point of this video is not why this is a good stroller, it's actually a stroller. But the key thing is to show you what to look for in a good stroller and what to avoid in a bad stroller. There's a few key features in all good strollers that I want to highlight, and let's go through them one by one. So first of all, the wheels. So you want nice big wheels that are sturdy and can roll easy. The key thing is when you look for a stroller, usually you're like in a store and they have nice smooth floors. That's not the real world. You're going to be using this thing in the real world. There's going to be cracks, there's going to be ledges, there's going to be curbs, there's going to be asphalt, there's going to be junk on the asphalt. So rarely are you going to be on a smooth surface. Even when you're going to airports and stuff, there's edges, there's lips. So having good wheels that are preferably big is probably the most important thing as far as the comfort of you using the stroller and also for the kid being in the stroller. So I can't stress this enough. The general rule of thumb is the bigger the wheels are, the better. And don't think that, okay, well, it's small, but it should be fine, because basically it's not going to be. And the last thing you want to do is push this stroller into a grate and, oh, it fell in the hole, right? So basically my rule of thumb is if the wheels are small or too cheap looking, just avoid it. Don't even risk it. You're going to be kicking yourself afterwards otherwise. So while I was in the US recently, we visited a Bye Bye Baby kids product store, and they actually had something pretty cool, which was a kind of test environment for their strollers. So they had different kinds of surfaces you could roll over, they had ledges, etc., and they really stressed that it's important to test out. So that's the first time I've seen it in a store. It's pretty cool, but also keep in mind this is not perfect. Definitely I've used my stroller in places that this thing didn't cover, like grass, gravel, dirt paths, handling things like grates. You know, it's just things that aren't included that you're definitely going to face sooner or later. One key thing to note though is, even with an environment like that to test in, the behavior of the stroller you're going to test in the store is going to be different than what you're going to face in real life. So in the store, you might just be pushing an empty stroller. It's going to behave differently with a kid in it. That's especially important for things like going over curbs or hitting cracks, etc. And also, not only is your kid going to be in the stroller, but you're probably going to have other stuff. The diaper bag's going to be in the bottom, etc. You can test it with the kid in it, test it with the kid in it. So my number 2 key feature to look for is the frame and the handle. So obviously you want something that's strong, you want something that's stiff, and you also have to keep in mind that some of the joints that, you know, especially for folding strollers, there's joints and rotating things that lock in place. These things should be somewhat stiff, so you don't want the joint to bend. You don't want a lot of play in the things. You don't want it where if you're pushing the stroller forward and then pulling it back, there's like a big flop from the forward position to the back position. So inherently with cheap strollers, there's going to be a lot of play in these things, especially if it's used, if it's worn out, it's going to have a lot of give in there. This just sucks and you want to avoid it if at all possible. For the Melody Moon, it actually had some joints in the handle, which just made it really unpleasant to use, and it makes it harder to like steer with one hand, just because the whole thing's really rickety. And for the safety of the kid, for the ease of use, and for the comfort, just avoid it if at all possible. This also has a big impact on your ability to get the thing over curbs. If the whole thing is really bending and compliant, it's going to be hard to lift the front wheels up to get the kid over a curb, so just keep that in mind as well. Number 3, storage. So almost all strollers have some kind of storage, kind of bag hanging from the bottom, or some kind of net thing in there. And that's great, and the bigger the better, obviously. So the key thing is not just the overall size of this basket, but also the size of the entrance. So in cases like this Melody Moon, it has a pretty big basket, but it also has tiny entrances. So anything like a large purse or a big bag of groceries, there's no way you're going to get it in there, and especially pulling it out with the kid in there without things falling all over the place. So keep that in mind. Basically, there's no point in having a huge basket if the entrance is really small. Next up, and this should actually be listed probably first or second, is the safety harness. So that's the seat belt, that's the straps, the whole thing that keeps your kid in the stroller. A stroller that doesn't have good straps is not only useless, but it's actually dangerous. It's worse than useless. You don't want to take your kid out and put him in something like a busy street situation where he can either fall out or jump out of the straps. I can't stress this one enough. From my experience, you should actually stick with strollers that have a 5-point harness. That's basically shoulder straps as well as a seat belt with kind of a middle thing between their legs. I made fun of the Stokke Scoot for having this really fancy 5-point harness, but as you saw in my video about getting hit by a bicycle, having those shoulder straps really, I think, saved my kid from the risk of getting injured. And having used a lot of strollers like this one that only have kind of the seat belt, the kid can lean forward, he can grab stuff in a store. There's a chance, if the stroller falls over, he can fall out and smack his head on the ground. So the more strength in the straps, the better, and you want to make sure that the buckles are in good shape and they're not too cheap and not going to pop out. And also the kid can actually pop it just from his own hand strength. The last of my main points is folding. So depending on your use case, this might be really, really important, or it might not be important at all, but you want to test out how easy it is to fold this thing up and the shape once it's folded. So a lot of strollers like this Melody Moon have quote-unquote one-touch folding systems. So in this case, there's a button on the handle to unlock, and then you press, kind of pull in that button, and you just lift up. The whole thing's supposed to fold up kind of flat like a folded chair. That's the idea, but in reality I had to actually kind of use my foot to kick it to get it to close all the way. So the key thing with this one is it does fold flat, but it's also still really long. Personally, I prefer something like the Zobo that I ended up buying in the US, which you just take the kid out of the seat, there's a little strap underneath the seat that you pull up and the whole thing kind of folds down like this. And that one for me was a little bit better because it's actually kind of compact space-wise, so it's actually easier to throw in the trunk or the back of a car or to check in at the gate. But the key thing is to test it. Lift your kid up in one arm and then try to fold it using only one hand. Can you do it or not? Is it easy to move after you've done it? Is it heavy? Does it still roll? Can you kind of drag it along the ground? So that's something to check. The other key thing to check is what happens after you've folded it. Does it stand up on its own on the floor? Does it fall over? Can you lean it against a wall? And where do the wheels go? Are the wheels on both sides? Are they on one side? Does it make a mess because the wheels are probably dirty? So those are the main features. There's a couple other small features I wanted to just bullet point out that you should also check. So check the wheel lock. Is it easy to engage? Does it have a decent shade that works not only during the midday but also when the sun is lower in the sky? Does it keep the sun off your kid's face all the time? Is there any kind of vent window or mesh in the shade? And that's important both for ventilation also, so you can see what your kid is doing with the shade closed. Is he asleep? Is he awake? Etc. Next up, does the seat incline? So a lot of these guys, at least the seat will go from kind of upright to some kind of half down position. If you have a smaller kid or your kid likes to sleep, can you put it all the way down? Just check it. Some people need these, some people don't, but at least know in advance what you're getting. Does this one change from front facing to rear facing? I think for small kids, having them face you is really critical. As they get older, maybe that's not as important. Last but not least, is it easy to clean? So is it easy to take the seat surface cover off? Is it easy to get the crumbs and stuff out of the cracks in the seat? Is it easy to clean the wheels? It's better to figure this out beforehand before you buy it. And if you think it's going to be a problem, maybe skip it. So that's basically it for my guide on what to avoid and what to look for in a decent stroller. Hopefully this has been helpful. I want to make one programming note. We are currently at 99 subscribers. I'm really happy. Thank you to all my 99 subscribers. Hopefully by the time you see this, we're well over 100. I'm hoping that the first 99 is the hardest, and from here it gets a lot easier. But I have to say thank you to all the viewers. Thank you to all the subscribers. And Thank you from the Clueless Dad to you. See you next time. Yeah.
This is good here. Do it again. Did you get the coastal tires?
Unlock. Just push the button. When these pads get worn in, it won't be as tricky as I'm finding it right now on the first try. But see, I can already get it off easier, so it's not that bad.